Yeah. Vacancy is it's a great topic because it really illustrates kind of the art and science of revenue management, occupancy, and pricing of rentals. So where I would start with vacancy is that there's really two seasons, and we're talking about long-term rentals here. And I would say that this is also extensible though to any topics about vacation rentals because what we're really talking about is the dynamics of seasonality, but then also what does the Arrive team do specifically during periods of vacancy, and how do we interpret these situations? So with long-term rentals, you have a hot season and a slow season. Your hot season is spring and summer, and your slow season are the other two, right? So that's general rule of thumb, seems to be true every year. And there's differences in markets, but let's just start there. And, within those seasons, our decision paths change. So let's start with a property that is just acquired. And now we're working with our property management partner to get it ready and then market it. So the rehab process, it can take anywhere from 2 to 5 weeks. It really depends on what's being done, but we generally try to keep it lighter and nothing too major, which, less than 2 months is a pretty short time in general for rehab. And right now we've been averaging anywhere from 15 to 25 days. Okay. So during that time, as things are, getting improved, we're going to start marketing the property even before it's ready. So this is a pre-marketing process, and we're just generally collecting feedback of whether the price is on target. And there's a whole discipline about pricing, and I think we'll touch on a few of these elements, but certainly we're not going to go into everything that's related to pricing. But we do a pre-marketing period with our property. So generally they're ending up on sites earlier than they're ready. Now they're not ground zero that 6 weeks out. We're kind of wasting that the eyes. But if they're like 2 weeks out, people can often still go see them. And if the refrigerator's not there, it's okay because they know a refrigerator's coming. But generally they can get a sense of the property. So we parallelize our marketing effort along with our rehab effort to really try to get at least as quickly as possible. So as you can tell from some of my earlier comments, my priority is occupancy when we are dealing with long-term rentals. It's in my opinion, it's as simple as that. As how do you win the game? You have to have high occupancy, not 100% occupancy. That means you're pricing incorrectly, but high occupancy. Okay. So once we have the property ready, then at that point we're looking at property pricing and we set it. And I would say if you're touching it more than probably every 10 to 14 days, you're probably touching it too much. So we look at pricing on about a 2-week cycle, and that's during the hot time. And the idea of why you can iterate faster during a hot time is because you have more information. So if you know there's a lot of shoppers out there and you have your property out there and nobody's calling and nobody's checking in, that's a very strong signal that tells you my property is incorrectly priced, A, or people are having access issues. It's one of those two things usually. So that's what our team diagnoses when we're working with our property managers on a weekly basis. So we work with a couple larger institutional property managers that handle the 200-ish portfolio for all of our properties. And on a weekly basis, in a live call, but of course, we're actually connected through other systems like Slack and other chat systems where more or less our companies are integrated through process. But we do review all of our outstanding properties with them as well as the rehab properties to make sure it's going down that funnel of rehab, marketed, rented, collected, right? So that's kind of the property management life cycle. So back to kind of the pricing thing, as you are looking at properties more frequently, you can iterate quicker. So that's why we should be leasing quicker and dropping rents quicker if they're not leasing during the hot season. Now, during the slow season, which is what we're still kind of in, but we're starting to come out of, what we would expect is more vacancy, right? And it's materially more, kind of a doubling in terms of marketing times from what we've seen historically. And there's just less shoppers, there's less people moving, there's less job transfers, et cetera, et cetera. So what does that mean with pricing? Well, if we're looking at it too often, we're going to be dropping it because we're going to say that people aren't checking in. But you would expect that behavior in a slow season. So if you're looking at your property prices too frequently during a slow season, then you're going to be dropping your prices too low. Because let's say that you have a property at $2,000, nobody bites. And then 10 days later, $1,900, nobody bites. 10 days later, 18, 17, 16, 15. Finally, somebody bites at 15. I mean, arguably, that person who bid at 15, is it because your house was really a $1,500 house, or was it because it's in a more remote area that just doesn't see much demand? That person still may have rented it at $1,800. So anyway, that example is just to illustrate why different demand seasons require different behaviors from like a pricing side and a vacancy management side on what to do. There's only so much that we can do to kind of force people in. So what the best thing that we can do is monitor what the competitive landscape is. If we are the most compelling value in the area, then I'm satisfied. We don't need to be cheaper than the most compelling value. So even if that means not changing your price for another 75 days, you're still the most compelling value. So why drop? So anyway, that's a little bit of kind of vacancy pricing. It's a lot of market monitoring, but vacancy is a tough topic, especially coming out of the winter. Less of a concern during the spring and summer. It'll feel like it's a leasing bonanza, but inevitably, as the cycle will tend to repeat, it'll slow down again in autumn and winter.